Okay, so for the next segment, what we're going to do is we're going to work on exercises that are a bit better for mid-range, which is to say between 8 and 12 reps. And we're going to start off with the bridge floor press. And one of the reasons I like this quite a bit is that this actually works well with heavier kettlebells. So if you take, let's say, a pair of kettlebells that you can only press maybe 3 to 5 times, you'll probably be able to do a bridge floor press with the same bells for double or even more, meaning that you can get a lot more pressing usage out of them by doing this, and you're going to be strengthening some muscles that, and some angles that otherwise oftentimes get overlooked. And this is another good option too. If dips don't work well, these usually work a little bit better, and they're a little easier on the shoulders. So something to keep in mind. If you have heavy enough kettlebells, or you don't mind doing the pauses in the press, this is a good way to get a little extra use out of this exercise. Okay? So On is going to show us how to get into the position. It's a little bit peculiar, but it's also easy to pick up once you know what you're doing. So what he's going to do is to pick up the first kettlebell, he's going to roll to his side in the exact same way that you do with the Turkish get-up, and then he's going to do a sort of a curl with the other kettlebell. Okay? So go ahead and demonstrate for us, please. Good. So he gets into position. Okay. Good. And this kettlebell is far enough down where he doesn't have to try to curl it from here or get into a weird position. He can kind of reach with a slightly bent arm, and the curl comes pretty naturally. All right? So go ahead and press up into the bridge. Now, before he presses, one thing you're going to notice is his glutes are very tight. His stomach is also tight, so he's not, doing this crazy arch like you see a lot of bench pressers do. He's keeping a more or less neutral spine. Okay, so the bridge is coming from the hips; it's not coming so much from the back. And from here, he's just going to press. Okay, and at the bottom, you're going to notice that his forearm is straight up and down, or as much as the kettlebell will let him. He's got to adjust based on that. Okay, good. Now, go ahead and to finish the set, exactly, he's going to bring his hips down, roll a little bit to one side so the opposite shoulder comes off, and then he's going to roll over to the other side. So, if you have very flexible shoulders, I'm fortunate enough that I have very flexible ones. It doesn't matter if you just let them both go at the same time, and they both go fall to the side. But if you have a tendency to be a little bit more in this position, and you just keep your shoulders flat on the ground and do this, you're very likely to hurt something in your shoulders. You want to avoid it as much as possible. So the set is not done until the kettlebells are on the ground. So big chest, okay, roll to the side just enough that you're able to let the kettlebell go, and then the other side, he's going to let go, just as you saw him do, just like he's putting down the kettlebell after having done a Turkish get-up. Okay? So what he's going to do next is we're going to work on the lunge. Okay? Lunges you can do for a variety of different rep ranges. In this case, we're going to do just a single kettlebell lunge. If you have very strong legs or you're very good at lunges, you can feel free to do doubles, but it's not a necessity. Okay? So he's going to go ahead and demonstrate. He's going to get the kettlebell into the goblet squat position. And just like with the military press, he's going to bring his feet together, and he's going to take a step forward. And move down very nicely, and back. Good. Once again. Exactly. Let's go ahead and show them from the side. Excellent. Good. Go ahead and set it down. Very straightforward. A couple things that we can mention here. If you'd like, so what he did is he did a very good standard lunge where you're essentially straight up and down at the top. Okay? If you find that this is maybe a little too easy for you or that sort of a thing, you can get into what's called a long lunge, where you're leaning a little bit more forward and you get a little bit more depth out of the front hip. One thing that you want to be very careful of is, well, two things. One, that you're not just standing straight up and then doing this, because that's just a split squat, which is great, just not exactly what we're working on. And the other thing is that you don't want to go too crazy with it and end up with this huge arch in the low back. Again, it's not bad necessarily, but we're doing a number of things that are low back intensive, and you want to save those for the other days as well. You don't want to completely go entirely crazy on it. Okay? Last thing is we're going to do the single-sided lunge. Okay? So he's going to do it with the staggered stance, right? I'm sorry, single-sided rope. Thank you. Yes, lunges are always single-sided, just to be clear. Okay? So what he's going to do is he's going to be in this position, kind of like if you think about the way that a wrestler will stand or gets ready, that's going to be the position that he's in. And he's going to rest one arm on the free leg, on the front leg, and then he's going to pull with the other side. So go ahead and demonstrate for them. Good. So the arm that he's pressing into his leg, he's really pressing the forearm down hard. It's not just hanging out there so that his shoulder can shrug. So as you can see, if you look at his back, he's maintaining a good neutral spine and he's not shrugging up with his shoulder like this. Good, and go ahead and relax. So in this, basically everything stays the same as we had with the sumo row. The important thing here to mention is that you can get a lot of usage out of the same set of kettlebells. So this is very good for doing, let's say, again, 8 to 12 reps. With even something that you could do maybe a lot fewer with the 2 kettlebells, so you don't really need to have like a huge collection of them. So if you do find, however, that it's a little bit too easy, then the other thing that you could do, I would say pause at the top. I wouldn't worry about pausing in the middle or at the bottom, but a pause at the top for 2 to 3 seconds before you lower will go a long way in building a lot more back strength as well as back thickness. So something to keep in mind. Okay, next what we're going to be doing is taking a look at the higher rep stuff.